The body had been dead for 11 minutes when Thessaly Okoye walked into the morgue. Dr. Landrick Voss, the county coroner, looked up from his paperwork. "Ma'am, this area is restricted." "Room 3, Thessaly said quietly. "The boy, Caspian." Landrick froze. "How do you know that name?" "Because I was there when he died." 11 hours earlier, Landrick Voss had been a coroner for 19 years. He'd seen every kind of death: car accidents, overdoses, murders, suicides. He'd learned to separate himself from it. The bodies weren't people anymore. They were cases, numbers, reports. It was the only way to survive the job. But when they brought in the boy from Fletcher's Pass, something in Landrick cracked. Caspian Harrow, 8 years old, found in the woods. Hypothermia. His mother, Bryony, had collapsed beside him, screaming his name until her voice gave out. The EMT said he'd been in the snow for over an hour. No pulse, no breath. Core temperature, 71 degrees. Dead. Landrick had processed the body mechanically, photographed the scene, documented the vitals. Time of death, 4:47 p.m. Cause, severe hypothermia leading to cardiac arrest. But when he looked at the boy's face, pale blue, peaceful, like he was sleeping, Landrick saw his own son, Kyrie, dead 6 years now. Same age, different cause. Landrick's hands trembled as he zipped the body bag. He went home, poured himself a drink, stared at the wall. Then his phone rang. "Dr. Voss?" The voice was unfamiliar, calm, female. "My name is Thessaly Okoye. I need to see the boy you brought in today." Landrick's chest tightened. "I can't discuss open cases with—" "I was there when he died." "Then you should be talking to the police." I'm not a witness, Dr. Voss. I'm the reason you need to go back to the morgue, right now." The line went dead. Landrick sat there, his drink untouched, his mind spinning. He should ignore it. Probably a prank, someone who heard about the case. But something in her voice. He grabbed his coat and drove back to the morgue. Thessaly was already there when he arrived. She stood outside room 3, her hands pressed against the glass window. She was maybe 40, wearing a heavy coat, her hair in long locks. Her eyes were closed. "How did you get in here?" Landrick demanded. "The same way I knew you'd come back." She opened her eyes. "Because some things don't end when the paperwork says they do." Landrick's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I don't know what you think you're doing, but that child is dead. His mother is in the psychiatric wing. And you're trespassing." "He's been dead for 11 minutes, Thessaly said. "He's been dead for 7 hours. "No." She turned to face him. "His body stopped 7 hours ago, but Caspian left 11 minutes ago. There's a difference." Landrick stared at her. "You're insane." "Maybe." Thessaly's voice was soft, steady. "But you came back here at 11:30 at night because something told you to. So maybe you're a little insane too." She was right. Landrick had no logical reason to be here. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "I want you to let me sit with him." "Absolutely not. That's against protocol, I know." Thessaly's eyes held his. "But Dr. Voss, when's the last time protocol brought someone back?" The words hit like a blade. Landrick thought of Kyrie, thought of all the times he'd followed procedure, done everything right, and still lost. 5 minutes, he heard himself say. "That's it. Before we go further, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because what happened in that room over the next 5 minutes? It's something science still can't explain. If you've ever lost someone and wished for one more chance, keep watching." Thessaly walked into room 3. The body lay on the steel table, still in the bag. Landrick had unzipped it earlier for the preliminary examination, then zipped it back up. She unzipped it now. Caspian's face was gray-blue, his lips white, his small body rigid with rigor mortis. Thessaly placed her hand on his forehead. "What are you doing?" Landrick stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Listening." "He's dead. There's nothing to hear. Not with your ears." Thessaly closed her eyes. "Dr. Voss, do you believe in anything you can't measure?" Landrick's throat tightened. "I used to." "What changed?" "My son died." The words came out before he could stop them. 6 years ago, leukemia. I prayed. I begged. I would have given anything. His voice cracked. God didn't listen. Thessaly opened her eyes. What if he did? And the answer was just different than what you wanted. That's a cruel answer. Maybe, or maybe we don't understand the question. She turned back to Caspian, placed both hands on his chest, and she began to hum. It wasn't a song Landrick recognized. Low, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. This is ridiculous, Landrick muttered, but he didn't leave. 1 minute passed, 2. Thessaly kept humming. Her hands never moved. 3 minutes. Landrick checked his watch. Time's up. Thessaly didn't respond. 4 minutes. Ma'am, I said... Then he saw it. Caspian's finger twitched. Landrick's breath caught. That's just nerves. Post-mortem muscle spasms. It's... The boy's chest rose. Landrick stepped forward. That's not possible. Caspian's lips parted. A tiny breath escaped. No. Landrick grabbed his stethoscope, pressed it to the boy's chest. Silence. Then, thump. 1 heartbeat. Landrick's hands shook. This isn't... He's been dead for 7 hours. The brain damage alone. Thump, thump. Oh my God! Landrick ripped open his phone. I need a crash cart in room 3. Now! Thessaly stepped back, tears streaming down her face. Caspian's eyes fluttered open. The hospital erupted into chaos. Nurses flooded the room. Dr. Minerva Ashcroft, the head of emergency medicine, took over. They moved Caspian to the ICU, hooked him to every monitor available. His heart was beating. Slow but steady, his brain activity was present, minimal, but there. Dr. Ashcroft pulled Landrick aside, her face pale. Landrick, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. I don't know. You were there. I was there, and I still don't know. Landrick looked through the window at Caspian, now surrounded by machines. He was dead, Minerva. Clinically, legally, biologically dead. And then? And then what? Landrick shook his head. And then she touched him. Who? Landrick turned around. Thessaly was gone. 3 days later, Caspian Harrow opened his eyes fully for the first time. His mother, Bryony, sobbed into his shoulder. Baby, you're here. You're really here. Mom? Caspian's voice was hoarse. Why are you crying? The doctors ran every test imaginable. CT scans, MRIs, blood work, neurological assessments. There was no brain damage, no organ failure, no explanation. Dr. Ashcroft stood in front of the medical board, her report in hand. According to every known parameter, this child should not be alive. And if he were alive, he should be severely impaired. But he's fine. Better than fine. He's completely normal. One of the board members leaned forward. What's your professional opinion, doctor? Minerva hesitated. I don't have one. Another doctor spoke up. Was there any intervention? Landrick, sitting in the back of the room, stayed silent. He'd filed his report, left out Thessaly's name, called it spontaneous return of cardiac function, rare but documented in medical literature. But he knew the truth, and the truth terrified him. 1 week later, Landrick found Thessaly at Fletcher's Pass. She stood in the exact spot where Caspian had been found, her hands in her coat pockets, staring at the snow. How did you do it? Landrick asked. Thessaly didn't turn around. I didn't do anything, Dr. Voss. Then what happened in that room? You already know. She finally looked at him. You just don't want to say it out loud. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. Thessaly smiled sadly. You've spent 6 years angry at God for not saving your son. But Dr. Voss, what if Kyrie's story wasn't about you losing him? What if it was about preparing you for this? Landrick's chest tightened. For what? For the moment when you'd have to choose. Logic or faith? Procedure or presence? She stepped closer. You let me in that room. You could have called security, but you didn't. Why? Landrick's voice broke. Because I couldn't let another child die. No. Thessaly's eyes were gentle. Because somewhere deep down, you still believed. Tears streamed down Landrick's face. I don't understand any of this. You don't have to understand it. You just have to stop fighting it. Thessaly reached out, squeezed his shoulder. Your son didn't die in vain, Dr. Voss. He taught you how to grieve. so that when the time came, you'd know how to hope. She walked away, her footsteps crunching in the snow. Landrick stood there alone, the wind biting at his face, and for the first time in 6 years, he whispered a prayer. Not of anger, not of bargaining. Just, thank you. 2 months later, Landrick Voss stood outside room 447. Different hospital, different case, but the same impossible situation, a 12-year-old girl, Braden Solis. Declared brain dead after a drowning. Her parents had signed the organ donation papers an hour ago. Landrick had been called in as a consulting coroner to verify the death. He'd done the examination, checked the scans, confirmed the absence of brain activity. It was over. But as he stood there, staring at the monitors, he heard Thessaly's voice in his mind. Some things don't end when the paperwork says they do. Landrick looked at Braden's parents through the window, saw their grief, their brokenness. He thought of Kyrie, of Caspian, of Thessaly, and he did something he'd never done before. He walked into the room, sat beside Braden's bed, and he placed his hand on her forehead. I don't know if you can hear me, he whispered, but if you can, fight. Just a little longer. Fight. He sat there for an hour. Nothing happened. The nurses came in. Dr. Voss, the transplant team is ready. Landrick nodded, started to stand. Then Braden's finger moved. 6 months, 4 cases, all declared medically impossible. The medical community called it Voss phenomenon. They wrote papers, demanded investigations. Landrick refused all interviews because he knew the truth. It wasn't him. It was the moment he stopped trying to control death and started sitting with life. 1 year after Caspian, Landrick received a letter. No return address. Just one sentence inside. You were always meant to be here, Dr. Voss, not to stop death, but to witness resurrection. T.O. Landrick folded the letter carefully. He'd never see Thessaly again. But every time he sat beside a body the world had given up on, every time he chose hope over protocol, he felt her there. And sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible happened. Hit that subscribe button if this story gave you chills. Drop a comment telling me, do you believe some things are beyond science? And tell me where you're watching from. Because this story is based on real medical anomalies that doctors still can't explain. If you've ever witnessed something unexplainable, you're not alone.